So who you are is this alive presence and this conscious recognition that it's happening. So who you are is this emptiness experiencing as everything now, which has this sense of I am, that this is, and this empty looking. And it's everywhere and everything. Those two qualities aren't contained inside the body, don't belong to someone, they aren't someone's experience, but yet they're experiencing. So right now you might think that it's you that's listening to me speak, that you're sitting in your room watching me on your computer, and you're someone that came into this room, you're somebody that sat down, and you're somebody that has a certain life, a certain age, things you like, things you don't like. You're someone that's going to leave this room, that's alive. But actually there's something that's experiencing this that's beyond that person. And that which is experiencing this beyond that person is always free, is always innocent and free and present, is always here. So that energy right now is free. It doesn't have any problems. It doesn't hold on to anything in time. It's totally pure and innocent. And it's the creator of all things. It's found in everything, and it's no thing. So it's experiencing itself now, and it's not separate from anything it experiences. So the sound of my voice isn't outside of that experiencing of that conscious presence. The sight of my face, the computer, the feeling of the sofa, all of that's appearing inside presence. It's only the mind, the human mind, which says, I end here and the world begins. In your actual experience, that's not the case. In your actual experience, there is presence which is everywhere and everything. So the human mind is something that we'd call the dual experience. So it's dualistic. It thinks in opposites. It thinks in me and you being the primary separation. And with this idea of me becomes this whole entity that lives inside the body and gives the experience of me in relationship with the world. Whereas that's actually only a functioning, a practical functioning that happens in the human, but isn't actually a reality. The reality is that you are, there's this presence. In most humans, this has been forgotten. It's been veiled by your dualistic thinking, by you, me, world, self and world, and right and wrong, and good and bad, and big and little, by all the opposites, judgment and no judgment, freedom and caged. So in the human world, you live in that, and there's the belief that goes that that's who you are, and you're limited, so it gives the experience of limitation. Whereas actually, the experiencer is always free and everywhere and everything. And that's why non-duality teachers will always say it's no one that wakes up, because there is no one. There is no one. There isn't a separate entity that's actually experiencing reality. There is only wholeness, life experiencing itself as everything. And that person that you believe yourself to be, that you believe to be right or wrong or guilty or innocent or victim or not victim or better than or less than, that person is an experience that's appearing and disappearing in experiencing and isn't the experiencer. And your nature, your presence is love. So the looking, the experience, the consciousness is emptiness. So that's what would traditionally be said as wisdom, this emptiness. And that would be associated as the masculine. And then the feminine is the I am. And that's everything. And there's lots of arguments as to whether consciousness is prior to the I am. And I feel they're both equal, that the consciousness and the I am equally exist. The I am would be the feminine, and that is everything. That's the manifestation. So the emptiness is nothing, which is the consciousness, and the I am is everything, and they go together. And one doesn't come without the other, like the yin and yang sign. And the I am is love. So the emptiness is wisdom, and the I am is love. Absolute love. And so there's again a lot of arguments whether this love is manifest feeling or not, and it doesn't matter to me. It just is love. Whether it's a feeling in the human form or not, it doesn't matter. It just feels like love, and it feels like that love is everywhere. And it feels like that human, on the human level, is meant to line up more and more with that love. And the human is meant to act from that place of love. And that's what I would call the flow. So following the flow of love, of life, which is love. So the human, when it's separate, it acts from fear and lack. It's always seeking for security, to avoid fear and to get love and avoid not feeling loved. And I would say that the shift that happens in the human is the human grows more and more into that love, acting more and more from that flow. So following that flow. So what happens is a feeling arises to do something, a want arises to want to eat or want to be silent, and that want feels like love in its natural form. And then when the separate person gets hold of it, the separate person believes that it will find freedom, because the separate person feels not free, it feels caged, it feels separate, and it feels unfree, it feels limited. So the separate person, the want comes up, and then the separate person believes, I will get love in that want, I will get safety in that want. So then the person converts it into a mental strategy into time. So it converts that want into time, and it analyzes that want in accordance to that person. And what the person has to do is drop more and more into that feeling of love, that innocent feeling of love, that innocent want, and act from that place. Act from the flow of love. So the first manifestation that comes in, that want, and it feels like love. So say if you want now to have $1 million, And then you have lots of ideas why you can't have that or you shouldn't have that. And all you have to do is want that, but in a really innocent way. So there's a want for $1 million, and there's just that innocent want of it, and not the idea, I can't have that, I shouldn't have that. If you just follow that flow. And if that body's meant to have the $1 million, then the body will move towards a way to get that $1 million. And if it's pure and from love, the $1 million will come. So this is where you've heard me talk about law of attraction. Like, you tend to be attracted to what you internally feel. So if you internally feel poor, if you internally feel like a victim, then you'll more than likely attract poverty. Even if you become rich, actually, you'll still feel poor. If you have that internal feeling of poorness, the money will still feel like poverty. You'll still feel like you haven't got enough. And if you feel like victim, then you're going to attract a perpetrator. You're going to see the perpetrator everywhere. If you have this innocent feeling that wants $1 million and you totally follow it innocently in that love, then the body will move towards that. So this is where it comes on to the next part of recognizing what you want. That you have to recognize what it is that you want. And the way that you recognize what you want is through love. But sometimes it takes a while to get down to those wants, because you've got all these other layers on it of seeking energy and personality and habits and conditions. So if you want, say, a lover, maybe the first feeling that comes up as soon as you think that, so that initial feeling is, I want a lover, I want a partner, I want a mate, which is really beautiful, innocent feeling. And then the thoughts that come up around that is that I'm not worthy of a lover or a mate. That will never happen to me. I'll never find my lover or mate. There'll never be someone good enough, or whatever it is, or I'll never be good enough. And then you unconsciously push away the mate. So you'll never find the mate, because that's what you believe, and that's what your body will move towards. So you just have to come back to that original feeling, which is empowering. I want a mate, and that's a very empowering feeling. Your natural flow is very empowering, not disempowering. It's the person that comes in and disempowers it. Remember, it's like being in wonder, as a child, when you're just in childlike wonder of the world and anything's possible. It's just opening up to that infinite possibility. So I want to do this or to do that. I want to sit and meditate. And then if you follow that, and if it's your true want, then that will happen. If you have lots of reasons why you can't meditate, because of my mind, and because of this, and because of that, and because of this, and because of that, then of course it's not going to happen. And this isn't anybody's choice. It sounds like I'm describing a separate person that has choice over anything. This isn't about choice. This is about functioning of a machine, the programming of a machine. And by listening to these talks, there's two things that's happening. The machine, the human level, is being reprogrammed to be more balanced and more in its flow. And then there's something beyond the human level that's hearing this. You are this infinite presence. Now on the human level, it's an endless job to expand more and more to love. That's not something that happens when there's an awakening to who you are as presence. That's something that can go on forever. That expanding back to love. Like not operating from the intellect. Offering something beyond that. Letting the intellect update you with information. So update you with the best possible information, and then following that natural flow. And as you drop more and more into your natural wants, there isn't this conceptual living. You in it live innocently. There's a response out of this innocence, rather than out of this mental construct that's in opposites, in the world of opposites of me, and how will this affect me, what will this do to me, will it get me this, will it get me that, da 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 da, and living from this childlikeness of expecting anything to be possible. Anything is possible. It's only your mind that limits you, because your mind and the world are the same thing. So whatever you believe is possible, that's what your world will be. If you believe the world won't give you what you want, won't allow you to be free, then that's where your experience will be. So if you realize that that's what your mind's doing, that your mind's limiting you, then there's a way that you can emotionally release that. You have to understand what your body's saying. So admit to yourself that it's saying these sorts of things, because often we don't want to admit to ourselves what we want, what we feel. We want to admit to ourselves our story of ourselves. So say if you're having a stressful situation happen, so say if you I always find these sorts of things hard. So say if you're trying to organize a party, and when you're organizing that party, your phone keeps cutting out, there's something wrong with your phone line, and so you can't organize it properly, and you're halfway through organizing it, then the phone cuts out, and then if you're ring them back, then it cuts out, and then the venue books someone else, then you have to find another venue. So say there's something like that, that you're organizing a party and things in your perception keep going wrong, and what happens is during the events of that, you begin to blame the external world. You begin to blame the phone company, or that your husband moved you to a different phone company and they're a terrible phone company. You begin to blame yourself, like, why does this always happen to me? Why is my life so difficult? Why can't life be simple? And so you've got that going on the surface. Now maybe you're really spiritual, so above that you've got on everything's perfect, so yes, it's all really nice, and you're trying to fake yourself out of it. So you get over that and you realize there's these other thoughts underneath, like it's my husband's fault, he changed the phone line, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, it's the government's fault. And then you go beyond that. So then you have to like notice that you're having these thoughts and admit that you're having these thoughts, because when you're really identified with them, you just believe that's real, that society or the phone line or your husband's really the fault. So you have to admit that you're having these thoughts and that they're not true. Now that's really difficult thing to do, because in that situation you might really feel like you're victimized to booking this party, and you didn't even want to book it, you're booking it for your mom and or whatever it is, and you feel you're victimized to it. So you first of all have to admit your thoughts and take responsibility for your thoughts. Now that's a big step. It doesn't sound like a big step, but it is. A lot of the time we don't want to admit these things. We'd much rather stay in blame. It's their fault. But if you stay in that, you're just going to attract more of that. The more you stay in that negativity and in that blame, you're just going to attract more and more of those situations and create more and more of those situations. So the quicker you admit it, then you can go down to the feeling. So how does this make me feel? Very simple. And you go into your chakra system. So your chakras are your feeling body here. More than likely it'll be here. It could be all over your body, but you'll more than likely have a tight energy somewhere in the chakra system. And you admit it. So it makes you feel vulnerable. It makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel unworthy. So you acknowledge those feelings, and you acknowledge that your thoughts and those feelings are deeply connected, and that your current experience is dependent on those thoughts and those feelings and not the external world. So the external world isn't at fault, because I'll tell you secret, the external world and your mind are one and the same thing. Everything you see is a projection of your brain. So you can go around pointing the finger like this, but you're just pointing the finger at yourself. It's just like arguing in the mirror. It's their fault. Oh, it's me. Now this isn't to make you feel guilty, because we go beyond the human and we see that the human is innocent. But you've got to take responsibility first. So, okay, you feel the feelings and you acknowledge, okay, I feel vulnerable, I feel powerless, and you feel them. You give them space. So you sit and close your eyes and you give them space. And then you'll begin to feel ready to move away from those feelings and to pick yourself up again. So you first acknowledge them, don't ignore them, acknowledge them, and then you've got to move out of them. So then on the human level, you've got to see you're not powerless. You are totally powerful, because you are the creator of all of this. You are not a victim. You're not weak. And that you can do it. And you want to book this party peacefully. And you focus on the solution. You don't focus on the problems. And that will pick your chakra energies up, so your chakra energies should feel more balanced. Then, when you've done that, you see that none of that is you. Who you are is this experiencer, this presence, and that these feelings and ideas and thoughts are appearing and disappearing in that, and none of it's personal. There is nobody that's guilty of anything. There is a functioning happening, an impersonal functioning happening. And Lisa is currently updating that impersonal functioning by giving a description of what can happen, of how that person can change. So I've told you what's got to happen, and that will either happen or not. But on the human level, it's as if you have to take responsibility and do it. But then you have to see that nobody's doing it. Everything you felt, everything you've thought, everything that you experienced was coming from infinite creativity, and it wasn't personal. It's creating spontaneously. There isn't something behind the person planning it. It's spontaneously appearing, the thoughts, the ideas, the feeling. But if you're tightly contracted in hate and dislike and annoyance, then it's impossible to see that you're this emptiness, this empty experiencing. But you have to take responsibility on the human level, otherwise you won't put the effort into changing. Even though it's not you, if you on the human level start saying, oh, it's all God's will, so it doesn't matter, you won't put the effort, energy into changing, because the energy is like on a flow, this negative flow of the person, and on negativity. And even though it doesn't feel nice, the energy is used to doing that, so it's used to going along like that. So it's almost like there has to be a pull against it to see that that's not the reality. It's not easy to see that the problem is your thoughts, your problem is your feelings, it's not the external world. That your thoughts and your feelings are the external world. And that's not easy to see, because your mind is addicted to the story that it's their fault. And you have to admit to yourself that it, in some level, feels good to blame other people. But it ultimately makes you feel bad on the human level. But there has to be an acknowledging of this, a calming down of that pain level, to see that you are this infinite, this juiciness, this wisdom, this emptiness, and this I am, the you are. And with these conditionings and these ways of being, that's always going to be an update. So I'm always updating Lisa. I can go into a negative thought process, or I can think something out of line, but I can always feel it really quickly as soon as I think something out of line, and I can follow something which isn't in line with what my body wants. And it's like a practice to infinitely expand to that love,